Scott Adams tweet. I'm going to read every word of this. It's about 5 tweets. It's just, has to get that respect. Scott Adams says, well, I might have to twist. I don't know what YouTube allows or doesn't allow, but the Highland shooting and every OD among the young are teaching us the same lesson, and we refuse to learn it. It's difficult, but I'm qualified to give you this lesson, unfortunately. And that's what he's referencing, I think there. He said this won't be easy to read. When a young male, let's say 14 to 19, is a danger to himself and others, society gives the supporting family 2 options. Watch people unlive your own child. These are your only options. I chose number 1 and watched my stepson unlive. I was relieved he took no one else with him. I gotta stop there. This is him being vulnerable. This is him being a leader. It doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree with what he's about to say. He's saying, I feel like I have a perspective to bring to the table to this discussion, and it's not being had. Everyone's talking about, well, what gun law? Well, how do you get the gun? And it's like, wait a second. Why is that the only conversation that we're having right now? Especially since we all don't agree on that conversation. Where is that going? What about why can't we agree about this? Where he's going here is mental health. If you think there's a third choice in which your wisdom and tough love along with government services fixes that broken young man, you are living in a delusion. There are no other options. You have to either unlive your own son or watch him unlive and maybe unlive others. If one more person hallucinates to me about some program where teens are kidnapped and fixed and returned to their happy parents, I might explode. No such thing exists. Again, that's just his perspective. You have 2 options, only 2. No help is coming, only unliving and suffering. You are probably twisting in your seat and you want to tell me all of your good ideas about how there really are services and ways to deal with such a teen. There are none. You haven't been there. Many parents have looked for such help. I have lots of resources. Doesn't help. If I were to invent a solution to the dangerous young man problem, I think it would involve putting them all in one place so they could only hurt each other, not necessarily in jail, just away from society. I'm going to expand on my idea here off of that. Back to Scott. Once they are separated from society and drugs, maybe help is possible. It isn't legal to take a young man's bodily autonomy just because he seems dangerous, but that has to be considered at this point. Otherwise, parents have 2 options and you get more of what we are getting. And I'm going to transition this into the discussion of mental hospitals, increasing psych wards. Scott Moorfield talked about this in an article he just wrote June 27th. Said make workhouses and sanitariums great again. Just tried to make a creative topic, but he took it, title, headline, but he took it seriously. He said, after reading that headline, your first question might be probably something along the lines of, were workhouses and sanitariums ever great? To which I would agree that no. Such places, these were not good places. They were dirty, all kinds of corruptions, violence, harm. But that doesn't mean we don't need these type of places. And for the lack of a better term, some of these people might need to be in an insane asylum is where we're heading for that. He said, just walk down any downtown block of any America's largest cities and you can't miss them. Camped out in front of shops and restaurants, exposing themselves on a downtown sidewalk, wandering aimlessly in the middle of the street, talking to no one. If you're lucky, you'll just see them. If you're unlucky, then you might have a crime committed against you by them. Hopefully it'll just be a robbery and you'll live to tell the police so they can do nothing about it. We've got a problem, and this is the bigger problem. And it's not getting smaller. It's only getting larger. Restricting access to guns, number one, is unconstitutional. So if you want to do an amendment, make your case. I haven't seen the case made yet as far as handling it. But if you want to talk about this, let's talk about this. He says it's not about to change anytime soon, especially with major economic recession just beginning. We don't know what's coming economically. That's only going to increase this. Layoffs and all kinds of job loss, and then robotics. When you get all of that involved, what happens is you'll have more people like this. So we need to address it, bigger than even the mass incidents that have happened. Public response to such conditions was to eventually toss the proverbial baby out with the bathwater and gradually get rid of workhouses. But maybe it was the right move then, but that doesn't mean it's not the right move now. It might be something to revisit. I'm not an expert in this. I was actually, much credit to my wife. I was talking to my wife about it. She knows a lot more about it, and we're kind of brainstorming through it just to, throw ideas off each other. This moment, Andrew Yang had a moment in one of the debates, I believe it was, for mayor of New York. And he had a moment where he was absolutely based and absolutely right. He was absolutely right about this. I'm going to play this clip. And he backtracked from it a little bit. I wish he had the DeSantis cojones to stand up on what he believes in and what he knows is right. He didn't say this to be mean to anybody. He said it is because this is a conversation we have to talk about. It wasn't about mass incidents, but it still is relevant to that.
The fact is, mentally ill, homeless men are changing the character of our neighborhoods. A woman my wife Evelyn is friends with in her mom group in Hell's Kitchen was punched in the face by a mentally ill man. Sent a picture of a bruised face around the mom group, spread like wildfire. This is happening in New York City, and we're not talking enough about it. Families are leaving as a result. In East Harlem, the neighborhood has been changed. Upper West Side, the neighborhood has been changed. We owe our people and our families better than this, and I'm frustrated by the political nature of these responses.
This is authentic Yang. I have to stop it. Look at his emotion. This is authentic Yang. This is Yang at his best. This is why I got a math hat. I don't even rock with politicians like that, especially back then. Now I'm more engaged. But with Andrew Yang, they're having the debate, and they're having this dishonest discussion exactly like what we're having with guns right now. And he's pissed off. He's like, that's not what we need to talk about. That's not an authentic discussion.
Upper West Side, the neighborhood has been changed. We owe our people and our families better than this, and I'm frustrated by the political nature of these responses. We're not talking about housing affordability. We're talking about the hundreds of mentally ill people we all see around us every day on the streets and the subways. We need to get them off of our streets and our subways into a better environment. And when you ask what I'm going to do differently, I'm going to rebuild the stock of psych beds in our city because the number's gone down 14%. It should be going up 100% until there are resources necessary for anyone who's mentally ill to not be on our streets. It's not right for them. It's not right for our city. There will be no recovery until we resolve this. I will fix this, New York. Yes, mentally ill people have rights, but you know who else have rights? We do. The people and families of the city. We have the right to walk the street and not fear for our safety because a mentally ill person is going to lash out.
This is nothing against mentally ill people. And they try to construe this, and they always try to use your position as a way to attack you. So his position is like, we have rights. Everybody has rights. He just said before that, hey, this isn't good for them either. But after this happened, they attacked him as if he were unsensitive. Nonsense. And somebody on the channel, well, I appreciate the feedback, was like, why did you call Yang a bitch? I called Yang a bitch in another video. No, I'm calling him a bitch because he's frustrating me. I need you to stand up on what you believe in, what you know is right. You hear him here. He knows he's right. He believes in what he's saying. Don't back down on it.
in our city, because the number's gone down 14%, it should be going up 100% until there are resources necessary for anyone who's mentally ill to not be on our streets. It's not right for them. It's not right for our city. There will be no recovery until we resolve this. I will fix this, New York. Yes, mentally ill people have rights, but you know who else have rights? We do. The people and families of the city. We have the right to walk the street and not fear for our safety because a mentally ill person is going to lash out at us.
And that's the same topic. It's the exact same topic. So I'm going to run through some thoughts here. I've talked with my wife about it. I want to hear what anybody has to say here. Before I do that, let me go to the comments. Thanks for the comments here. Yeah, Yang has bent the knee many times, and I still, I'm an ideas guy. So even if I'm not Yang guying anymore, or whatever that means, if he has a good idea, he has a good idea. But I'm tired of him kowtowing and bending the knee. It's enough. We don't need that right now. That is not the energy I am in the mood for right now. I am not for hate, or I am obviously for understanding, but I'm not bending the knee when I talk about, well, we have rights too. And he wasn't saying anything negative about the mentally ill or homeless. He didn't say anything disrespectful about them. So don't do that. I don't have time for it. I need you to be stronger, Yang. You didn't say anything even remotely disrespectful. I'm not backing down from it. So Vinlago says, a moment of clarity for Yang. He is correct. Now watch him get cascaded for it. Unfortunately, that's what happened. And he did. He really did. But Christian Lane says, many businesses that were 24 hours shut by 10, the zombie apocalypse is real. We all see it. And it's almost like taboo to talk about. It's not good for them. It's not good for us. And we're only creating the likelihood of more problems. I think that's kind of what John Voight was talking about in that video where he said, hey, it's time to look at a new leader here for our country. Crime is out of control. It's like, it's not just the shoplifting and all that. Anytime recently I went to our downtown area around me, and in the day, I'm damn sure it won't be at night. But I'm always looking around. I'm like, man, I don't know, man. I don't know how many times I can come down around here to eat. There's restaurants that aren't down here. And the shooting happened in a suburban, pretty well-to-do area in Illinois. So it's not like you can run from this thing, but it really, the heart of downtown areas, urban areas, are where we're seeing this zombie apocalypse start. And it's only going to get bigger. Zombies don't stay in the city. If it stays on course to where it is now, don't think you can easily run from this. The more well-off you are, you're probably going to be better off. The more rural you are, the probably better off you're going to be. But if you're in a suburb, I guarantee there's probably an urban area pretty close to you. And it's expanding closer and closer and closer. I know where I'm at. I've seen way more homeless people over the last few months than in the last couple years. It's getting worse. And I'm not talking about in the urban city. I'm talking about in the suburbs. Christian Lane says, I'm in Portland. From here, it's insane what's happening and spreading fast. What a beautiful city. Went to Portland. It was about the same time I went to San Francisco 6 years ago. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago. My wife and I started down Southern California, drove all the way up along the coast, and we kind of ended our trip up north. Beautiful. Went to Seattle, took that Ferris wheel they got. We went to Crater Lake. Crater Lake is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. One of my biggest regrets is I should have proposed to my wife. I was like, oh, I just had kind of like, a little nervous actions there, but it was Crater Lake is so beautiful. If you don't know, it's water in between like mountains, kind of like volcanoes. And the water is so pure, they don't let many boats or anybody down there to swim. The water is so pure, it looks like a mirror. But as far as Portland goes, I love Portland. I kind of love the hippie Portlandia style. I'm a hip hop guy, like alternative, like underground hip hop, like alternative hip hop and rock and folk and stuff like that. I love folk. Anne Brunn is one of my favorite folk artists. I actually sampled her when I used to make beats. Just so sad what's happening. So you see, we start with this mass event, but we look at it, it's almost like we pull the covers back and we're like, whoa, the mass event is a part of a larger problem. Why are we talking about guns? I mean, you can have that conversation, but there's a whole bunch of other things happening when you pull the wood back. There's a lot of termites and things. We got to clean this out and figure it out. So I was talking with my wife, and I was like, do we have the only guide, because who in the chat, Vin Lago in the chat said something about unconstitutional, I believe. And that's a good point. So the ideas that we have to be constitutional. So to me, I hate to say it, but if somebody is a member of society, they should be able to get a gun. If we deem and we look at some of these shooters and we say, I don't think they should have had a gun, then the problem is they should have been removed from society. That's the problem. So how does that happen? How does that happen constitutionally? How does that happen fairly? You've got to have due process. You can't remove the right for them to have a gun, because my take is, so you say that this young guy who did it, don't even want to say his name, don't want to show his picture. This young guy that did it, all these young guys that do this stuff for slightly various reasons, but they're all messed up in the head. You're telling me that you're uncomfortable with them having a gun, but you are comfortable with them behind you at line in a supermarket? You're uncomfortable with them having a gun, but you're comfortable with them driving behind you in a car? No. The gun's not the problem. They shouldn't be walking around breathing in society like I am, like you are. I don't know what the answer is. We're just walking through it. I'm just a dude in my basement. There's got to be a process. You have to have due process. So you have to be able to have a lawyer. I don't know if this is a new thing or what, but you have to be able to say, hey, if you see, and with this guy, they found out that he tried to unlive himself. If you try to unlive yourself, there's many people who have done that and recovered. That I'm not knocking people who have recovered from that. But if you have, I think there has to be some type of second path through a court system. And I know the danger that I'm going to talk about here is that when you have an establishment-controlled court system, they can just label you as whatever they want to. Forget about that. If that's the case, then there is no answer. I can't give an answer. Assuming the court system does work and the judicial system is still the best branch, going all the way down to the local level, you get licensed help. Not a MD, not a doctor, but you get licensed therapist, whatever you call them, help. And they say, hey, we think you're bipolar. You need to go to the next step, which is an MD, to get something prescribed to you. So the basic thing that I'm talking about is a path where we decide, and this whole time you still get your gun rights. You go through the path to see if can you be a functioning member of society. Same thing goes with homeless. If it's deemed that the homeless person tried to hurt somebody or hurt themselves, we've got to go through step one, licensed help. For some people, licensed help might be enough. They might say, hey, all this person needed was somebody to talk to. There would be a certain percentage, and then a certain percentage will go on to the next step. Medication. And that's a difficult process. You have side effects and all kinds of things, like weight gain, headaches, and all that kind of stuff. And see, maybe that will make you a functioning member of society. The problem with that is, what if you just don't want to take it anymore? This is a difficult thing. And then, so can you hold a job? Are you functional? Do you need, I would prefer a universal basic income, but do you need disability? And the last step would be the group that's so bad, drugs and medication, everything, through the court process. How that looks, I don't know. Is that a whole new process? I don't know. I don't know if think that this person can function in society, they're going to have to stay in this insane asylum or mental hospital, to put it in as a nicer term. And then now we have to talk about, do they have access to who's going to pay for this and all that. But that's the process I think that needs to happen. And those people, they can't be functioning members of society by a specialist through due process. They lose their 2A rights because they are now in a mental hospital. That's the type of thought and that goes for not just these mass events. It's just any homeless, any mentally not even homeless or not, any type of mental issues would go down that path.